الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها النبي قل لأزواجك وبناتك ونساء المؤمنين يدنين عليهن من جلابيبهن ذلك أدنى أن يعرف فلا يؤذين وكان الله غفورا رحيما. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صل على محمد وآل محمد. A predominant difference between the followers of Islam and followers of other religions is that women in Islam practice something called hijab. Women in Islam cover their hair, their shoulders, their necks, and their entire bodies. While this sort of practice does not exist in other religions today, or at least followers of other religions are not seen practicing such sort of hijab. Two questions here lie. Is Islam the only religion that preaches and teaches about hijab? Is Islam the first religion to come up with the idea of hijab? Or does hijab exist in other religions, in other civilizations, in other cultures? This is the first question. Number two, what is the philosophy of hijab in Islam? Some deem hijab to be oppressive to women and unjust, because if there was justice, they say both men and women should cover, or both men and women should not cover. But a religion that mandates for their women to cover and their men not to cover, this is oppressive, and this is bias. We first look at the first question and then go to the second question. When we take a look at history and examine history, we see that Islam is not the only religion that preached and taught about hijab. Hijab existed in other religions and in other cultures and civilizations. However, the term hijab is different. It can mean several meanings. Hijab, to some degree, is the clothing that a woman wears to cover her hair, her neck, and her body. In other meanings, in other civilizations, it could mean segregation between men and women. This is a form of hijab. And so on and so forth. We see that when we examine history, we see that hijab did exist. For example, according to Will Durant, a well-known historian, he mentions that Jewish women, if a Jewish woman would leave her house without wearing a veil over her head and a scarf, her husband had the right to divorce her without giving her dowry. This is among the Jews. Will Durant also mentions that in the Persian Empire, women would be separated and segregated from men. A woman would live for several days, maybe several weeks, without seeing a single man. Not even her own father, not even her own brother. Jawaharlal Nehru, who was an Indian historian, he mentioned something interesting, that some of it is not accurate, but we'd like to take something else from what he says. He says that the Arab people, they learned to veil their women and to tell their women to wear scarves from the Roman Empire. Now we'll take this from this historian. We'll say, listen, the part about the Arab learning from the Romans, this is inaccurate, because the Arabs did not learn from the Romans, especially Muslims. Muslims did not learn from other religions and other civilizations. Hijab is mandated in the Quran. If they learned from anyone, it was from Allah. However, this historian tells us that the Roman civilization also practiced hijab. Because of the Arab people, they learned from the Roman Empire. That means that even in the Roman Empire, the Romans were practicing something called hijab. But what exactly was hijab to them? It could mean several things. It could either mean that a woman covers from head to toe, or men and women were segregated, which is worse than having her dress from head to toe. Because Islam does not promote segregation. Even though Islam encourages hijab, Islam doesn't say that men and women have to be segregated. A man cannot see a woman, and a woman cannot see a man. Islam does not promote this. Even in ancient India, there was something called hijab. Women would wear veils and scarves, and if a woman decided to violate this law, she would be punished. She would be punished by her community if her head would show, if her body would show. And of course, early Jews and Christians, they would practice hijab, and their women would not show their hair nor their bodies. Proof of this is old paintings from early Jews and Christians. If you look at old paintings and drawings from the early Jews and Christians, you won't find a woman unveiled. You won't find a woman uncovered. And the best descriptions, or what describes those communities, is their paintings of the Virgin Mary. The Virgin Mary is always depicted in paintings and drawings to be fully covered from head to toe. This shows that this was something common. And then somewhere down the line, in Jewish and Christian history, something went wrong, as we shall see. And we shall see where something went wrong. That women stopped covering. And women started to expose themselves, to expose their hair, to expose their bodies. Something went wrong. Otherwise, from the origin, in most of these cultures, most of these civilizations, most of these religions, there was something called hijab. There was something called a veil and a scarf for women. However, what was the reason that these religions and civilizations practiced hijab? Anthropologists mention several reasons and causes for a woman in these civilizations and religions to cover. Let's mention these reasons, and let's see that did Islam promote hijab for the same exact reasons or no? For a different reason. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One reason mentioned for the practice of hijab in other religions and civilizations is the issue of self-discipline. What does this mean? In some religions, there was this notion that in order to get to the absolute truth, al-haqiqah, in order for your eyes to open up to the absolute truth, you have to abandon worldly desires. This existed in certain religions. Worldly desires were seen as an obstacle from saying what is true and saying the truth. Desires like eating, drinking, being clean, cutting your hair, and of course, marrying and having inclinations towards women. These sort of desires were seen as an obstacle from allowing you to see the truth. Thus, some religions picked up the idea of abandoning worldly desires in order for your eyes to open up to the truth. Because marriage was seen as one of these desires, having inclinations towards women was seen as one of these desires that will stop a person from reaching the truth and seeing the truth. They brought up the idea of hijab, that women should cover. Because when a woman covers, this would kill any sort of inclination. This would kill all sort of sexual desire. Thus, a man would no longer pay attention to that sort of desire. Instead, he will work on himself spiritually and try to attain the truth. Among the religions that believe in such sort of philosophy is Hinduism. In Hinduism, there's this idea that you must abandon worldly desires in order to see the truth. That's why Hindus are vegetarians. They don't eat meat. Because eating meat is seen as a vice. According to Sikhs, worldly desires will stop you from seeing the truth. That is why they have the idea of growing your hair. Their men are not allowed to cut their hair because cutting your hair is part of cleanliness. To show your cleanliness, in order to be clean, you have to cut your hair. Well, they grow their hair in order for them to be away from worldly desires and in order to see the truth. There are some Muslims that have picked up this philosophy and idea. Some Sufis have picked up this idea. They some go and live on mountains. They abstain from social interactions. And they remain celibate for many years only for the reason to reach the truth. For their eyes to open up to the truth. Is this the Islamic reason behind hijab? Is this why Islam has mandated hijab? Absolutely not. Because we don't have an idea, we don't have a philosophy in Islam that says worldly desires are haram. In fact, the Quran says, قُلْ مَنْ حَرَمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ. Allah says, who told you that worldly desires and things that are beautiful in life are forbidden? We don't have such a thing. In fact, we have a general principle in Islam that says everything by default is halal. Everything by default is allowed in Islam, except 1, 2, 3, 4. Except a couple of things. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ لَا أَجِدُ فِيمَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ مُحَرَّمًا عَلَى طَاعِمٍ يَطْعَمُهُ إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَ مَيْتًا وَدَمًا مَسْفُوحًا أو so and so. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Rasulullah to tell the people that I don't find anything forbidden for me except 1 or 2 or 5 things. That's by default. Everything in Islam is halal except those that have been made forbidden. Islam doesn't fight worldly desires. Islam doesn't tell you not to be clean. Islam is a religion that preaches cleanliness. Islam doesn't tell you don't go and not get a haircut. Islam doesn't tell you to remain celibate and not to marry. We talked about this a couple nights ago when we discussed women in the Quran. When we discussed the concept of women in the Quran, we said that the Quran encourages marriage. Islam does not see marriage as a vice like many other religions do. Islam does not see having sexual inclinations towards women as a vice. On the contrary, it's seen as a virtue. من أخلاق الأنبياء حب النساء. In one hadith, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, إن الله جميل ويحب الجمال. Allah is beautiful and He likes beauty. Allah wants to see فإذا أنعم الله على عبد بنعمة فينبغي أن يظهر أثر ذلك عليه. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He gives us a gift, the gift of money, the gift of beauty, the gift of anything, He wants us as servants to show that gift, to show it, don't hide it. If Allah has given you a gift, show it. Thus, Islam doesn't fight worldly desires. Islam says, fulfill your desires, but don't let your desires take over you. You take over your desires. There's nothing wrong with that. If you have your desires under control, so be it. The dangerous one is when your desires take over you. This is what Islam stresses upon, emphasizes upon. Islam says, whatever it is that you want to do, knock yourself out. Just don't let those desires take over you. And I mentioned the hadith a couple of nights ago of the woman that had their husbands fast all day, worship all night. They came and they complained to Rasulullah. They told me, Ya Rasulullah, we don't even see our men fast during the entire day. They worship the whole night. Rasulullah came the next day to the masjid and he scolded them. He said, I heard that some men fast the whole year. This is not my sunnah. There are days that I fast and there are days that I break my fast. I heard there's men that do not eat meat. I eat meat. I heard there's men that don't see their wives. They worship all night. I see my wives. And so on and so forth. So this was not the cause. Self-discipline is not the cause behind hijab. A second reason that has been mentioned. Lack of security. Some of these religions and civilizations and cultures, they practiced hijab and they promoted hijab because of lack of security. Because at some point, there were rulers and emperors that lived like savages. Whatever they saw, they had to get. For example, it's been mentioned in Iranian history during the days of the Sassanids. The Sassanids were a dynasty, a kingdom. There were some rulers that if they saw any attractive woman, they had to have her, no matter what, even if she was married. In fact, they were ready to kill, they were ready to abuse, they were ready to murder. Thus, the issue of hijab came about. Some men, some families, they feared for their daughters, they feared for their wives, they feared for their women, they asked them to wear hijab. Interestingly, there was this story has been mentioned. There was a Persian emperor by the name of Anushirwan. Anushirwan was a well-known Persian emperor during the Sassanid period. This guy was basically an animal. They say that he had a general, and his general had an attractive wife. Whenever the general went away, he would go to his wife. The general heard about this, and he feared for his life. He was afraid that the emperor will kill him because of this. So he abstained from going to his wife. One day, the emperor saw this general. He gave him a message. He told him that I've heard you have a beautiful gazelle that you haven't been going to lately. So the general answered, he said, yes, because I saw the marks of a lion on that gazelle. So I abstained from that gazelle because I'm afraid that lion would eat me. The emperor started laughing. He said, no, don't worry, you're safe from the lion. This is how it was. In some societies, in some civilizations, this is how it was. And indeed, there was lack of security on behalf of the woman. The woman did not feel secure. That's why they implemented hijab. And not just back then, even till today, even in America, even in Europe, there are some neighborhoods, I'm sure that people are afraid to go to. A woman cannot go into alone in such neighborhoods. And we're talking about the United States of America, a country ruled by law. Yet still, we hear of assaults almost every day. There are some neighborhoods, there's assaults every day. And rapes are very high. However, is this an Islamic reason behind hijab? Is this why Islam formulated the idea of hijab? No. This is not the reason. Islam says that if you're afraid of assault, if you don't have security in your community, you need to set a law. There needs to be law enforcement. But this is not why hijab was mandated. A third reason that has been mentioned is female exploitation. In some civilizations, they would make the woman wear hijab from head to toe and segregate from men just to keep their woman at home to serve them. To serve them for the interests of men. To raise them children. To look after the house. Men needed a good excuse to keep their woman at home and to look after the house and look after the children, so they asked the woman to wear hijab. Is this the reason behind Islamic hijab? Of course not. As we said, Islam promotes the idea of hijab. Islam promotes the idea of modesty and covering, but Islam does not promote the idea of segregation. Islam doesn't say that men have to live on a planet and women have to live on another planet. Islam doesn't say that women have to remain at home 24 hours a day. Thus, this is not the correct reason either. A fourth reason, this fourth reason is a bit interesting. It says that men have something called ghira. The best English definition of this word ghira is pride and jealousy. When a man has a wife, he doesn't want anyone to look at his wife. He doesn't want anyone checking out his wife. He wants his wife just for himself. And he wants her beauty just for himself. He wants to be the only one that enjoys his beauty, her beauty. This is called ghira. And for some men, the worst disgrace if he notices that another man is checking out his wife, or is looking at his wife. Or the greatest disgrace if his wife engages in an immoral act. That is why in some societies, in some communities, they say that if a husband ever finds out that his wife has engaged in an immoral act, he can kill her. Or if he can't kill her, it's against the law, and he does decide to kill her, he doesn't go to jail too long, just 6 months. Because this is called what? An honor killing. This is called an honor killing. So in order to satisfy his ghira, to satisfy his jealousy and pride over his woman, he asked her to wear a veil or a scarf, so that she remains exclusive to him and to no one else. And no one else gets to see her. Is this the Islamic reason? Islam encourages the idea of ghira. Islam says that men should have pride. They should have jealousy. If a man has no pride over his woman, this guy's not a man. If he has no ghira, he's not a man. A man should feel pride over his woman. He shouldn't be showing her off in front of people. If he leaves the house with his wife dressed half naked, he's not a man. This man has absolutely no ghira. He has no jealousy, no pride. Islam encourages the notion of ghira and jealousy. There's a hadith that says, ghiratul rajul iman. When a man has pride and jealousy over his wife, this is part of faith. But of course, there's limits. You shouldn't put a tent over her and parade her in the streets. Nothing like that. Or put her under house arrest. Moderate jealousy, moderate pride, moderate faith. Nothing too extreme. Islam encourages this. But at the same time, this is also not Islamic reason. Even though Islam encourages to have ghira, to have pride and jealousy, but Islam did not mandate hijab to satisfy a man's ego, a man's exists in certain civilizations and cultures is that women during their menstrual cycle, they should be segregated. They are seen as impure. A man should not communicate with a woman during her menstrual cycle. She should not be seen. She should be left alone during these 5, 6, 7 days because she's impure. Of course, again, Islam disagrees with this opinion as well. Islam does not say that women are impure during menstrual cycle. Islam doesn't say that women should be segregated during their menstrual cycle. They can't see a man, they can't speak to a man. And in fact, Islam says that a woman should practice hijab all year long, not just during her menstrual cycle. If this was the reason, then hijab would have been practiced 5 or 6 days out of the month, while Islam tells us that hijab should be practiced all year long. Thus, this is not the Islamic reason. Then what is the Islamic reason? If none of these reasons mentioned by anthropologists regarding hijab are the reasons that Islam has mandated and preaches about hijab, then what is this Islamic philosophy? According to Shaykh in his book, Hijab in Islam, which is in Farsi and in Arabic, I don't know if it's been translated into English, it's a very beautiful book. Shaykh has this theory. He says that hijab conforms perfectly with the nature of men and women. It conforms with their nature. It goes perfectly with their psychology. But how so? Remember, we've been talking about this for the past couple of nights. We mentioned that men are attracted to what sort of woman? The ones that are very bold and courageous and make large statements? Absolutely not. Men are drawn towards women that are shy, women that are timid, women that are not so available, women that are not so seen. Most men are like this. And of course, when it comes to marriage, when it comes to marriage, a man wants a woman that is not so seen, that is not so available, that's shy, that hasn't spoken to half of the neighborhood. Now, what hijab does is that it makes women even less available, even less seen, even more shy. It puts that sort of barrier. When a woman wears her hijab, she's going to be less seen. She's going to be less available, and this will make her even more desirable in the eyes of women. When she's less available, she's going to grow bigger in the eyes of this man, that no one has seen her. No one has spoken to her in that sort of way, folks. Thus, it comes perfectly with the nature of the woman. Hijab will only make the woman more desirable in the eyes of the man. He will want to seek her approval and be with her and discover her innocence and protect her innocence. This is according to Shaykh Mutahari. And basically, my dear friends, let me put it in business terms. Some people think business. I don't think business, but I'll give it to you in business terms. The law of supply and demand. The more the supply, the less the demand. The less the supply, the more the demand. When a female gives all the supply, gives no room for imagination, everything is just, mashallah. Where's the demand? There's going to be absolutely no demand. But if there's less supply, the less the supply is, the bigger the demand is. This is in business terms. Thus, according to this analysis, and according to this philosophy, is hijab degrade women? Is it disrespectful to women? Is it limiting women? Or is it bringing her more respect and more honor? Is it making her more desirable? hijab is making a woman more desirable in this way. Look at the West, my dear friends. See, in the beginning, we said that most religions, they practice hijab. But somewhere down the line, they stopped. I presume that they stopped in the early 18th century. Especially here in America and in Europe. Especially during the Industrial Revolution. Especially at the time when capitalism was rising. You might say, what does capitalism have to do with all this? What does the Industrial Revolution have to do with women unveiling and women not practicing hijab? It does. There's a big connection. Because during the Industrial Revolution, when capitalism came out, everyone started thinking of money. How to make money. How to become rich. The rich just wanted to become richer. And what they did was they started to exploit women. Women were being used to make the rich richer. They were making men richer. That is why the slogan of woman should not be covered, or the slogan of woman should be seen and not heard, this was promoted. This was promoted here in the West, here in America, for one reason and one reason only, to make men richer. Do you know how much companies that deal with lipstick, eyeliner, makeup, these kind of cosmetics, this industry, do you know how much they make annually? If there was an issue of women should be modest, women should not put any makeup on, women should cover their hair, do you know how many companies would go out of business? How many companies made money just off of exposing women, and exposing and exploiting women, exploiting their bodies, exploiting their beauty? So many companies in America. So many industries that became billionaires just by the slogan of women should not be covered. Women should be free. Women should not be told by men what to do and how to dress. They should do whatever they want. They should dress however they want. You think they did it for the sake of Allah? Fisabilillah? Or out of pity for women? Or out of pity for their own pockets? Out of pity for their bank accounts? How to become richer? Thus, who benefits from the idea of women should not cover and should not wear a veil? Women should be exposed. Women benefit when women become less desirable, or is it the men benefit? Companies, leaders of major companies that are making billions from such a slogan. My dear friends, Islam stops female exploitation. Islam says that women are human beings. Women should not be used to make other people rich. Women's beauty should be admired, but at the same time protected. Women's beauty should not be exploited by men to make them only richer and then leave that woman alone for society to trash. Women are not objects to be used. They're not like a beautiful painting that are put on a wall for people to enjoy their beauty, and then when there's another painting out there, that other painting is thrown in the trash. No. Islam says that women are respected. Women are honored, not for their beauty, but for who they are as human beings, just like men are. This Islam stops female exploitation. Islam says, let women cover their beauty. They shouldn't be exploited. They shouldn't be taken advantage of by men. They should cover themselves. They should cover their hairs, their body. Yes, their face could be seen, their hands could be seen. You don't need to cover fully. And they don't need to segregate as well. Islam doesn't say that men and women need to stay away from each other and live on different planets. Islam says that if women want to come to the Islamic Center, they may do so. They're encouraged to come to the Islamic Center. They're encouraged to participate in Salat al-Jum'ah and Salat al-Jama'ah. They're encouraged. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would have special sessions just for the women. He didn't neglect them. He didn't say that women should remain at home. They can participate, they can be active members of the community. Furthermore, hijab, my dear friends, it provides a healthier society. It provides a healthier society when women are covered, when they're not dressed provocatively. You see, sometimes a woman doesn't put a headscarf. But sometimes it's much worse than that. It's not just about the headscarf. The hijab is about being dressed modestly. I see some sisters, they have a headscarf. But for God's sake, I mean, it's just a headscarf, but everything else is showing. It defeats the purpose. Sometimes when they think that as long as skin is not showing, khalas, this is perfect hijab, this is Islamic hijab. No. If the entire body is seen, if the shape is seen, if all the curves are seen, this is not hijab. That defeats the purpose of hijab. My dear friends, the whole point of hijab is to protect society. Is to bring a healthier society. A society that's not full of provocation. That women are not dressed provocatively. So that there's not so much tension in the community. Because what happens is that families can be destroyed. When there's so much provocation, when there's so much tension, families can be destroyed. Children will be lost. Divorce rates will skyrocket. Islam says that hijab will protect society. It will create a healthier society. Hijab provides society with morals and ethics as well. I conclude with this. I saw a statistic that in societies that hijab is practiced, there are lower rates, very low rates of homosexuality. And in societies that hijab is not practiced, and there's exposure everywhere, there's higher rates of homosexuality. Why? You know why? Because when there's so much exposure, you get sick of it. After a while, you get sick of it. You will begin to look for new ways of gratification. Let me give you an example. It might be a silly example, but I might get to the point. If you have kibbaniya every night for a club, 1 night, 2 nights, 30 nights, after a while you're going to be looking for something else. Forgive the example. Some might deem it to be disrespectful. I mean no disrespect. But it's the point. When there's so much exposure in that community, in that society, people will go look for other means of gratification and fulfillment. And this is exactly what happens. But when there's hijab, when hijab is being practiced and implemented, there's less exposure, there's less availability, thus there's no need to look for anywhere else. I hope these few words help people understand the philosophy of hijab, the Islamic philosophy behind hijab, and that hijab is not to disrespect and to degrade women. On the contrary, it's to raise their status and bring them respect and honor. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa